to talk about where this model comes from, which is essentially this idea that humans, for much of human history, worked with a model that was based more in nature and the natural cycles of nature. So there were times of great output, great productivity, harvest, and there were also times when the field needed to lie fallow and there was less work, and a time for rest, a time in between great output. And for much of human and even Earth's history, we worked on that kind of cycle and worked in more harmony with it. And with the Industrial Revolution, that cycle shifted over to mechanized production and to meeting, supply and demand, not so much with a natural cycle, but what could be produced mechanically. So we lost a little bit of this natural idea of the intelligence in a natural cycle. And that in today's world and kind of the American dream, our career and our lives should be onward and upward. We climb the corporate ladder and pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. And each step we take should be closer and closer to the perfect, ideal work or, life experience. And we all know that it's not that simple and it's not that easy. So what this model does is helps us reconnect with a more natural cycle of life and with our own bodies and beings and energy, around how we can be productive, when we're productive, and where the intelligence is in how to apply our energy. So what I invite you to try, and you certainly don't have to do this, I won't be checking your homework, but is to follow along with doing a little bit of drawing and writing with me. And the model itself is on a circle. And it's the idea of, rather than like an arrow of, your career should be just one step after the next, just onward and upward. It's kind of more this idea that we cycle through life and we go through phases where we're highly productive. And like I said, there's a lot of output or there's a lot of reward. You're feeling really connected. And then there's times where you might be questioning a little bit more, or really in a space of not necessarily knowing what is next, or a time of exploring. So if you all want to follow along, you can draw on your piece of paper just a circle. It can be a messy circle, an imperfect circle, but just draw a circle on your piece of paper. And then divide it into 4 equal parts. So cut it into a pizza pie of 4 parts. So a line down the middle and across the center, which gives us the 4 seasons, which we'll use as a metaphor. And right in the center, I would like you to just put a little circle or a little spiral or a little heart, but something loving that represents you, because this is the center of the circle. It's the center of the cycle. And that's just the inner stillness. That is the inner you that doesn't go anywhere, and stays present through all these revolutions that we go through in life and all the change, but it's the part that stays still. So you might consider this your faith, or just your inner sense of who you are, or a stillness or a quiet within. So make some kind of indication what that is. I drew a little spiral with some orange dots, but that's a piece to acknowledge as we begin. And we will then go into, we'll start in the upper corner. So in this quadrant, we'll start with summer. And so again, this is a metaphor, but summer is the season that we all go through. And it's a time in our lives when we have said yes to something. And so that could be a job, it could be a college, it could be a house you chose to live in, it could be a person you choose to be with. But it's something that you choose either outright, or it kind of fell into your lap and it's something you wanted. And you it's something you want, and it's something you want to be good at. It's something you want to keep. It's something you want to stay with. And so this season is marked, as it is in nature, with blossom, with bloom, with fruiting. So it's a time of output. It's a glorious time, as we know, summer. It's a really, people who are startup people are really good at summer, because it's like you get started and you have all this go, go, go energy. And it's also a time of really developing confidence, because it is a time of competence, of learning, of becoming a master at something, of becoming very skilled. So if this is a job that you took, and it's a time to really get good at it. It's a time to get a raise. It's a time to be published. It's a time to be seen. So, as we all know, summer doesn't last forever, but we can stay in summer. We can maintain something that we really love by staying connected with it. And though it is a time to, in some ways, rest on your laurels. It's a time to say, this is what I have. I'm not searching anymore. It's also, you don't want to rest too much. You don't want to get bored with where you are, or you don't want to get, too relaxed and like, I'm good at this job, because you want to stay present and current with it. So when I first learned this material, it occurred to me that I'm born on March 21st. I'm a very spring person. I love to start things, and then I like to move on really fast, or I unconsciously moved on really fast, because I think I had an unconscious fear of getting bored or getting stagnant. So when I first learned this material, it occurred to me I didn't actually stick around for a long time to really get good at something and to become a master of something. So even though it's very appealing to talk about the season of summer, it's not necessarily something we've all necessarily become masters at ourselves. So it's just, I put this out there because that was my experience with it. Also, when people hear about being in the season of summer, they might think, wow, that sounds exhausting. Because it really is a time to be seen. It's a time to be noticed. It's a time to produce. It's a time to say yes to everything, or everything that you want. But the point here is that what you want to do with summer, the goal of productivity in summer is to become good at something and to maintain it. So it's one thing to get what you want, and it's another to keep and to have what you want and to continue having what you want. To be in a marriage for a long time means revisiting how to keep the vision alive and how to keep it fresh and still really matching truthfully who you both are at this time. And the same with a job. How does the job continue to feed you? How does it stay intellectually engaging or personally fulfilling? So those are the questions to be asking when we're in summer. And more than anything is to notice when you are in summer. And so that you're not just unconsciously moving away from it or going on to the next thing because you're afraid of becoming bored or stagnant, etc. So learning how to recognize when you are in summer or when parts of your life are in summer. So we'll get more refined with this further in, but it's something to consider is that there might be aspects of your job that are really working. They're just in flow, but other parts aren't. So again, that's a way of kind of articulating. So I don't want to spend too much longer on summer because we need to move along, but I want you for just a moment in your little summer box on your circle to write down what it has felt like for you to be in a time of summer. This might be right now, and it very well may not be right now, or a job or a time in your life. It doesn't even have to be a career. It could have been time you were a swim instructor in a summer job and you just loved it. It just was a great gig. Or a time you traveled to such and such a place, or lived in such and such a place. So the idea is to just remember or make connection with a time when you have really felt like a fish in water. You have chosen something and it was a great fit, and you had energy for it. So just write down what that was like for you, and what the experience was for you. So, and again, all of these are things that you can come back to, good kind of journal prompts. So the next season to talk about is fall. And so in real life, in actual nature, fall is a time when the trees start to lose their leaves, things start to close in and come in. And fall in this model is a time when the vision that we once had for something no longer fits perfectly. So maybe that job that you thought you wanted and you got it, and you've spent some time there and it's kind of like, it's not quite what I thought, or it's not feeding me in the way that I thought it was. Or maybe this wasn't exactly what I wanted, even though I thought it would be. Or who is this person that I found myself connected to? We don't even know each other anymore. So it's a time when you're questioning, you're doubting. And the important way to understand this is that it's a time when your energy, you don't quite have the energy for it that you thought you should, or rather that you just don't have the energy for it. And so this is our natural way of our body and our being letting us know that something is not a perfect fit. And it doesn't mean you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It doesn't mean you need to quit your job or walk away from a partner or leave a house or a state or whatever. Now, it might mean that, but it also might mean it needs some refinement. And it needs some time for you to actually pay attention to what is working and what's not working. So, we go into fall because for several reasons. One is you've actually outgrown the vision, that it was too small for you. So it could be that you really thought that this was going to be a perfect fit, and it was for a while, and then it just wasn't because you grew and it didn't grow with you. Another reason is that what fit once, it doesn't anymore. And as Joseph Campbell says, you can get to the top of the ladder only to find out it's leaning against the wrong building. So you might have thought you wanted to go to graduate school for such and such. And then you find out it's actually not what you thought it would be. And another reason is that it could be that it's actually taken away from you. Maybe you were into print journalism and then that industry is moving along. So there are different reasons that we can go into fall. But really the takeaway here is that something that once fit, or that you got yourself into that was once a vision, no longer fits. And what is important here and what's productive in this time is to find a way to help you assess and clarify what is or what isn't working. Because what you're going toward now is saying no to something. Now, it may be an aspect of the job. It may be an aspect of the career itself. Maybe you really love this particular aspect of what you do, but you can't stand this other part, and this other part drains you so much that you barely have energy for this part. So that's the refinement piece. And so rather than just dashing out and saying, I gotta leave, it's kind of finding out what part is feeding you and giving you energy and what part isn't. And maybe it's all draining you. But here's the little fall drawing, the fall leaves. But the idea of leaves falling is that it's not a time of production. It's actually a time of bringing the resources in and close to the center so that you can make a decision and you can say no to exactly what you want to say no to. And so the productivity goal here is, how do you make challenging decisions? Do you get help? Do you go to the West Business Center? Do you get therapy? Do you have great friends? Do you have good colleagues that you can talk to help you refine what is draining you now? And it really is a time, because there's some pain around the vision not fitting anymore. You know, this person that perhaps you were madly in love with for many, many years, and it just isn't fitting right. There's a lot of pain because there's conflict. So you might be thinking, you know, it's a paradoxical time. You might be thinking, I don't want to be too hasty and rush out of this. And then another part of you says, but I'm afraid I'm going to be stuck in this forever. So there's a feeling of going back and forth. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, in her stages of grief, really addresses, you know, how we can go through stages of denial, stages of anger, you know, fantasies of being rescued out of the situation. So know that if you're in fall around something, it's going to be a time that you're not in your warmest and fuzziest or in your most productive, because your energy is not being replenished. And that's the state of things. So what you want to do is be able to find a way to give yourself the conditions, the environment to, as I said, be able to refine what part of the vision is no longer fitting, so that you can let go of what doesn't work, whether it's the whole thing or whether it's aspects of it, so that you are clear in your no. You know, we get a lot of emphasis on say yes and be positive and know what you want. And that's great. That is 100% great, especially for summer. What's productive in fall is know what doesn't work for you. What is no? What's a little no? Like, no, I don't think so. To no way, no way. This doesn't work for me. So learning to be graceful, intelligent, and very true with what your no is equally important to how intelligent and fabulous you are with yes. So no gets a bad rap, but no is actually a very useful and important aspect of keeping our lives healthy and staying connected with our energy. So saying no. So fall is about knowing what you're going to say no to and doing it. So once you do that, once you have gotten through that challenging time, fall is a very uncomfortable time, we move into winter. So winter, as indicated by a little snowman there and falling snow, is a time when the leaves have fallen. So it's not a time of production. It's not even a time of releasing all the energy. It's now a time, as you know, with trees or with plants, where they bring the energy close to the center and down under the ground. Now, trees in winter are not dead. They're actually doing something very intelligent, which is maintaining their energy. And we're not given this opportunity much in modern life to go in and just be present with ourselves and to lick our wounds and be there for the parts of ourselves that have not been met, that are not working, to grieve losses. You know, sometimes you might start grieving the loss of one aspect of your life, and then it just comes a whole bunch, you know, a tidal wave of more sadnesses. And part of it is that we don't necessarily exercise our hearts to experience loss and grief as a perfectly natural and important and healthy aspect of being productive humans. And a beautiful quote that I once heard is, grief is a form of gratitude. So winter is a way of letting go of what didn't work. So this could be something small. Perhaps you're in an aspect of you're in a job and you have said certain aspects really aren't working for me anymore. And you let them go, and there is a process to let that go. Whether you are sharing this with somebody and there's the fallout of it, whether you're walking away from a job and walking away from a person, there is going to be, of course, a time to be with that grief so that you are naturally going to go through that entire cycle so that it has the ability to run its course truly before you start up again into the next season. So in winter, the idea is that, it's a time to rest and to let the field life fallow for some time in order for the nutrients to be restored into the soil. So I'm speaking metaphorically, but really in our culture, it is not appropriate. There's no advertisements for doing winter in your life. There's only advertisements for, be on target and be moving onward and upward, rather than how are you also nurturing in your life, in your career, the aspects that didn't work out, the aspects that haven't been what you thought they would be. And so what this model encourages us to do is actually allow that to be part of our lives, because it's healthy for the whole organism. It's healthy for humans in all working situations to honor the whole cycle. So the real task of productivity in winter is self-care. It's allowing yourself to let that aspect go, and before you move on to the next. So it's not necessarily the time when you are writing your resumes for the next thing. It's the time when you're just being present and allowing what was to go. So being okay with uncertainty on level. There are two key aspects of winter. One is that you're getting insights and you're letting people help you. So this is a great time to be using, the resources around you, getting support. And having, places like West Business Center be there for you, and to allow you to connect with what is genuinely within you. So it's not necessarily what you think you should be doing next or what you feel you have to do. I mean, certainly you might, you need to cover the bills and take care of finances and all of that. So, part of the productivity goal in winter is to create a context in which you can do some downtime, and you are still taking care of the logistics in your life. We had a teacher in the Career Center who was saying it was time for him to move on from being a teacher. And he didn't know what was next, but he knew he no longer could be a teacher. It just was draining him so much. So for a while, he took a job putting labels on candles. And it was a mindless job and paid the bills. And it wasn't what he was going to do forever. And in fact, it was not a career move in the, onward and upward version. But what it was a way for him to take a breath and reevaluate and reconnect with himself so that what genuinely feeds him, where his energy truly is what he could connect with, so that in his next career move, it was an excellent fit versus like a desperate move. So, this is also a great metaphor, and something that I learned in this workshop as well many years ago, is that the word depression literally means a dip. So a dip in energy. Now, certainly there's a difference between a clinical depression that, might be really holding you back, and also just the normal natural depressions that we go through of energy when the goal is to actually reconnect, to recharge, to let the past go. And so it's important to know and to listen to what your energy is telling. If you are, sometimes the energy is, I need to rest for a while. I need to nap. I need to care for myself because I don't have the creative energy of what's next. I don't know what is next. So winter is being in the time of, I don't know yet. I know what is no, but I don't yet know what is yes. And that's the part of the title, The Time Between Dreams. So Claire, you can go back to the regular view. I think that the book title might be on. Yeah. Anyway. So that is the goal of fall, is to get to a no. And then the goal of winter is to be with that no until the energy naturally starts to come back. And that is when we are moving into the season of spring. So, sometimes people would ask me when we talk about winter, well, I'm afraid if I go into winter, I'll never come out. And it's understandable. Again, we live in a culture that doesn't encourage us, it does not encourage us to take time to be slow, to not know what's next, to be with the unknown. And so we're often pushed through it very quickly. And so we often don't trust that, in fact, there will be a lot of natural wisdom and intelligence and insight that comes out of winter. And for being, for a moment, brave enough to be with the unknown. So that what we can do as we enter spring is to really follow the natural currents, our natural impulses, our true desires to try things out, to follow different leads. And the idea is not so much that it's a story in your head or your story about yourself. What are you supposed to like? Maybe you've always been told you were a star at this and you were so good at this. And of course you're going to be like this and you're going to do this because that's what your family always thought you were going to do that, or you're following in your footsteps. But this idea of actually spending time to reconnect with, or to connect at all with what is truly the impulse within you for what you want to do with your time and energy, that is where we move into spring. And the idea of, just the little sprouts coming through the soil, and kind of seeing which way is the sun, which way do they want to move. That's a beautiful metaphor for how we can do spring in our career search or in our lives, or in dating. It's like actually following your true energy for something and seeing what fits, what feels right, what makes sense. So before you get to summer, which is when you say, yes, I'm going to commit to this one thing, this one person, this one job, this one house. First, there's a time to explore and to check stuff out and to experiment and say, yes. Oh, wait, no. Or I want to try that, or I'll have a sample of that, or I would like to meet you. For a while, I thought I wanted to be an architect because I loved the way architects lived their lives. And so for a while, I went toward architecture because I was really drawn to it. And through a series of events, what I found was that I didn't want to build houses. I wanted to organize houses. But it was through that natural impulse, that natural magnetism, and just feeling really drawn to those people, to their artistic sensibility, and to the way their minds worked, that led me to what I wanted to do with my life. So what I encourage people to do if they feel that they're in spring is to make lots of little yeses and to not commit to anything, and to find ways in the way that in winter, the productivity goal is to do self-care. In fall, the productivity goal is to figure out what you need to say no to. In summer, the productivity goal is to be great at what you do, become a master, get good, and stay engaged. So in spring, the productivity goal is to explore, to say yes to all the aspects of yourself that actually want attention, because there is a great deal of wisdom in that. In particular, there's the kind of wisdom that tells you what you actually have energy for. And this is the key to being successful in your career, in your particular job, in a particular project, with a particular person. Do you have energy for it? Not do you think you like it? Do you know you love it? I mean, that's helpful too. The brain has a lot of helpful intelligence that it lends to our lives. But we overplay that and we underplay the importance and the intelligence in what we have genuine, true energy for. Because in the long run, if we don't have energy for something, it will fizzle. You know, there was a story of this wonderful woman who came into our center, and she was a doctor. She was a pediatrician. She came from a long line of pediatricians in her family. And she was the first woman. And so she was like very determined to be a doctor, to prove that she could. And she came to us sometime in her late 30s, and she had a very successful practice. And she was going, oh no, I just don't have energy to go into my job. You know, I thought I loved it. I thought this is what I wanted to do. But the truth is, I'm just drained by my job. And what, you know, with some counseling and some understanding, what she found out was the vision that she had was not her own vision. It was the vision of her family. And it got her a long way. I mean, it got her through med school. It got her to start a successful practice. There's no failure in this. But what we really encouraged her to do was really take on spring and really just truly explore what she wanted to do with herself, because that energy will run out if it's not genuine, if it's not connected to a true source within yourself. So exploring, that is the goal with spring, so that by the time you're going to buy that car or commit to that person or say yes to that job or that career or that graduate school, that you have enough self-knowledge and connection to know that that is going to last for a long time. So that's how we get through our cycle of change and going through the seasons. So the take home here is that what is really useful to do in summer is very different than how useful it is to just go, go, go. You don't want to apply that to winter. You don't want to apply that to someone in grief. You don't want to apply that to someone who just left a job or left something major. So, and same with spring, following your energy, being curious, saying yes and no, you know, all of that's great for spring. In fall, you want to just take care of yourself. You want to take off all the extra things that you're doing, all the extra drains on your energy, and just bring it in close to the center so you can make a decision in your life. So, so that's how we go around the cycle and get through all of the 4 seasons. And essentially, the idea here is that we want to be able to say yes to something. So that's when spring ends and summer begins, is when we say, yes, I'm choosing this. And it feels solid and it's something I want. And then once we get into summer, we make refinements so that we can stay with something. So a relationship, you can redo your vows or renew your vision of who you are at 40 versus who you were at 20. In your job, you can say, you know what, I'm really good at these 5 things that I do in my job, and I'm really lousy and drained by these other 4 things. And I want to see, can we tweak this? Do I need to leave the job? Do I need to leave the career itself, the field? Or is this about refinement and making some key choices to make it work better? So that's a lot of information. Again, I typically spend several hours going through this. So Claire, are there any questions to bring up at this point? I see one dot with the Q&A.
Yes, we have a question from Erica. What are the diagnoses for determining when you are in a particular season?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of times you can tell when somebody's in summer. They're like, woo, so I just did this and this and this. I'm going to be asking for a raise. And, people are like energetic in summer. Somebody in fall, is probably feeling kind of grumpy or feeling triggered or feeling closed in because they don't have access to their source of energy. So you can tell if you're in fall, if you're questioning, if you're having dreams of falling off a cliff or being stuck in an elevator. You are in fall if you're feeling really like you're stuck in a paradox of I'm afraid I'm going to leave the situation. I'm afraid I'll never leave the situation. And so there's typically a lot of fear and anxiety and some depression in fall. Now, in a longer session, I would also have people go through and spend time in fall remembering what helped them in fall. So, there are certain things that are helpful. Some people need to be alone. Some people need friends. Some people need to get a therapist or get a coach. Some people just need time alone. Now, in winter, people in winter are often feeling there's a little bit more depression or a little bit more inward turning. And it's healthy, even if it doesn't sound, really jazzy to say somebody's, in a more quieter time. But the difference between fall and winter is that winter is after we have said no to something. So we've actually moved out of the situation, or we have articulated our no, and now it's a regrouping time. Spring is typically marked by kind of a more sporadic energy. Now, you might be somebody that goes out in the world and wants to try everything, or maybe you're a researcher and you read and need to know a lot about something before you make a move. But you can kind of tell when people are in the different seasons. I hope that answers your question. So what I want to do is now give you all some opportunity to take this information and make it real for yourselves. And if you want, as I continue, is to feel free to write down some of the words of your experience in each of those seasons, how you do those seasons yourself. So maybe you're somebody in fall, you get really angsty and you get really grumpy, or maybe you turn a little inward, or maybe you need to ask a lot of people for advice. So, in this moment, or just even, in the coming days, think about ways to support yourself in each of those seasons, and ways in the past, not necessarily if you're in fall or winter right now, but in the past, what has been helpful for you in particular? What ways most support you or most productive for you when you find yourself in those situations? Yeah. So feel free to write those little words down, or reflections or insights that you might have about you. What has helped in the past? What have you been like in the past? You might give warning to the people around you. Hey, I have a really hard decision I'm trying to make, and if I seem short with my patience, it's just because I'm trying to make a hard decision. So, if you can have some compassion for me, that would help. How often do we get to hear something like that from someone? I mean, it'd be really helpful if we heard that more from people. So, Claire, if you want to go to the next slide of what's helpful. Yeah, so working with the cycle, these are just some, Cliff's notes on what's helpful here. So really to remember that this process is normal and it's natural. And there is true intelligence at work. And so just because you're saying no to something, or just because you aren't feeling connected to the vision anymore, it doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It means it's time to change. It means it's time to refine, to make a big move or a small move or a move in between. But to trust that it's normal and there's nothing wrong with you to be in any of these spots within change. So importantly, it's listen to the feeling needs, and even the ones that are in conflict. As hard as that is, it's easy to say and it's harder to follow. But a lot of times the feelings of resistance are there because it's protecting something really important within us. So one of my favorite pieces of advice is energy is always available for the next small step. So a lot of times what happens is people get really anxious because they're trying to skip a step. Oh gosh, something's not fitting in my job, so I have to figure out a new job. Well, maybe actually what you need to do is figure out what's not working first, and you probably have energy available for that. So that moves us to the next piece of advice is don't skip a step. So a lot of times people in fall want to be already getting their resume out, which is spring stuff. And when you're in spring, you're really energetic and you're magnetic because you're following what is really truthful in you and what you have real energy for. However, when we're in fall and we're feeling inner conflict and we have to say no to something, that is not the best time to get your resume out. It's just the laws of nature. It's not when we're our most attractive. It's not when we're feeling compelled to things. We're actually being driven away, which is an important thing to do, but it's not the time to be, trying to get something that you want. First, you have to do the hard work of saying no to something. And get support. So West Business Development Center is a perfect example. Home organizers, therapists, coaches, good friends, spouses, your dog, a great yoga class. So there are lots of ways to get support. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of, how to work with the cycle. And then, Clara, you can go ahead to the next slide. So something here to think about is there are different aspects of your life, and they are probably going to be in different seasons. So it may be that everything is in winter right now. I mean, certainly right now, I would say, we're in a fall/winter with our whole political scenario and, a virus pandemic that's, there's some serious unknown going on right now, certainly. But, it might feel like, your relationship with your kids are great. They're in summer, and your relationship with your job is in some fall. It's like something's not working. I'm not sure what yet. Maybe your health is in spring. You're trying to figure out ways to take care of yourself and be really creative around that. So what I encourage you to do why don't we take a few minutes? We'll just take a few minutes, but over on the side here, you can see some big aspects of your life, career, job, relationships, family, health, creativity. So feel free to use those or take any other aspects of your life. I remember somebody wanted to plot where humor was or their intellectual engagement. So take any aspect of your life that you care about and just place it somewhere on the cycle, and discover for yourself where those aspects of your life are. So I'll give another minute for that. We just have to kind of move quickly through it, but wanted to give you the opportunity to get started on that.
And would it be possible to ask you any more questions that have come up?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Great. We've got a question from Laura. Laura asks, does it help to do this work with someone?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, by with someone, do you mean to have someone like a career specialist? Maybe what exactly do you mean by with someone? I mean, I guess the short answer is that I myself find it really helpful to get support when I'm trying to make big decisions about my life. And I think that that's why there are places like West Business Development Center. There, the whole industry of counseling and therapy is for this stuff. Some kind of facilitation. Yes. Let's see. Claire, do you want to summarize the question for me?
Oh, sure. I'll take a guess. And Laura, please feel free to let us know in the chat.
Okay.
As far as that particular question.
Yeah, but basically I would say in short, absolutely. When we're going through change and we're feeling challenged, we're not at our most resourceful. And that's why one of the best, most productive things you can do in fall and winter is to get help. And so that's why places like this are really useful, and people who specialize in the book, Carol Vecchio's book. So there's a lot of support for going through these kinds of changes. Yeah, any other questions?
Yes, we do have another question. It's from Colin Moore. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Do these metaphorical seasons usually settle in and last a while, similar to real seasons, or do we jump around through seasons day to day?
That's a great question. I think that there are aspects of, of our lives that we go through sort of quickly. But what I would say is the seasons that we go through, they last as long as the vision that we have been connected to. So, for example, if you were in a career for 30 years, a long, long time, to make the decision to come out of it and to then leave it is going to take a little time. That's not going to happen in a week. Whereas if, you met somebody and you thought, oh, maybe I'm going to date this person, and it lasted about a week, and you're like, you know what, this was just not a good fit. That fall and winter is not going to last that long. You might be like, okay, that didn't work out. So really, it's about how invested your life was in that particular thing that you're, moving through some change with. So, and that's a great question, and I'd love to spend more time with it. but in short, it really is. It relates to how invested you were, and also how much of the vision of it was your own. So sometimes, if the vision really wasn't truly your own, and you've walked away, you may not spend that long in winter. Maybe like, I don't have a lot of grief here, or I don't need a lot of downtime. It's time to just move on, and I'm relieved, and I'm going to jump into spring. Let's explore. Let's find the next thing. Let's go. So, so that can happen too. I don't mean to suggest that, everybody has to spend like months and months or years having a Great Depression in winter. It's just more the idea that we need to go through it and honor that aspect before we, can genuinely move into spring. So let's move to the next slide, which is what's your current work satisfaction? And this is a way to, as I said, do some refinement. And if something feels like you want to say no, and you're feeling that challenge, that push-pull of fall, this is a great exercise to write down what are all the aspects of the job, both for you and also, of the job description. Because what you might find of 20 things you really connect with, you want to know how many you connect with. So let's spend just a minute reviewing this exercise. And so you can get an idea of how you can use this model for your own current sense of work satisfaction. And then go ahead and plot where some of those aspects are, again, in the model. I'm happy to answer another question too. We just have another moment or so, but wanted to give folks time to look at this exercise and assess their own job satisfaction. But Claire, is there another question?
Yes, actually, we have a question from Christina. Christina says, or asks, I should say, do the seasons always go in order?
Yes, they do. But it doesn't mean that they're of equal parts. So, your fall may be very short. You might say, I think I'm going to, X out of this thing. I'm going to leave. And then, you say goodbye, and, winter isn't necessarily a big deal, and you move into spring, and, you spend a long time exploring before you connect with something that you're saying yes to. So you do go through all aspects of it, unless you're somebody that's trying to do a quick fix and you just kind of repeat a same cycle over and over. So rather than going into like winter where you do some real personal evaluation, you just skip right over it and kind of repeat. I had a friend who basically just found herself in the same relationship, breaking up with them after a year and a half, over and over and over. And she did this for like 20 years. She has a long-term partner. But basically, I think that the healthy way to do it is to go through all of the seasons. Yeah, so it's the last slide that I want to share with you. So Claire, go ahead and skip to the next one. This is a way to also take any relationship in your life. So it could be a primary partner, a spouse, a child, a parent, could be a really good friend or a boss, really anybody in your life, and list out what are the aspects of that relationship that matter to you. And then go ahead and plot them. And this is a great thing to certainly do on your own, but it's also really helpful to do this with the other person, meaning you do it separately and then share. So then this way you can also find out from a partner, from a friend, from your kid, what aspects of the relationship matter to them and where are those aspects. So you might not even know some of the parts that this other person really cared about. And so anyway, the point is here that this is a way to apply the principles more specifically to your life, to a relationship. So you can go back to the regular view, Clara. So these are some resources to share with all of you at a time where there's the great unknown is with us a great deal. And so within that, we have lots of, aspects that we're juggling in our own lives, of jobs that have changed, of, parts of our normal life that are now in flux, relationships. So there's lots to be juggling. And so this is hopefully a useful tool for you to be able to find out what does feel solid and, what needs some evaluation, what needs some time, and what needs some exploration. So with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions, but it is 5 o'clock, so I want to let you all go home. And I also want to say thank you so much for joining me. It has been a pleasure to speak with you. So thank you. And I really enjoyed being here tonight. So any other questions or anything else to address before I sign off?
Let's see. I'm looking through both the Q&A and the chat box. I don't see any questions, just gratitude and energy from this wonderful session. I don't know about anyone else, but I was furiously writing things down.
Great. Excellent.
And, this was so wonderful. Oh, I see some Me Too's. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. A big thank you to you, Cody, for taking this time and so elegantly condensing what I'm sure is a lot of information into this wonderful piece that each one of us can walk away with, think about, and start to implement in our lives. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the opportunity. It was definitely something to condense it down, but I'm really, I think it's a wonderful resource that you have here at West Center. So thank you for offering this to the community. I think it's such a great resource. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's all for today. Once again, thank you all so much for coming, for taking the hour out of your day, and especially on a Friday afternoon. I do want to let everyone know that we are going to have another business balance session in November. I'm going to go ahead and put that information in the chat box for you all, so you all can take a look, see if it looks like something you'd be interested in participating in. Love to see you all there. And then I will be emailing a link to the recording as well as a copy of the slide deck and a survey out afterwards. So be sure to keep your eye on your inbox. And I've gone ahead and put that information for next month's business balance. Looks like we have a temporary guest speaker who's probably off to her bedtime.
Can you say bye?
Bye. Thank you all, and have a wonderful evening. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.